At one point, I truly believed I had the perfect life. Right after college, I landed a solid job and was in a marriage I thought would last forever. Lily Walker, my ex-wife, was someone I imagined spending my entire life with. We met when I played college football. I wasn't a star, but I took pride in my strength. Lily, a member of the dance team, captured my attention with her beauty and elegance. In the beginning, everything was great, but over time, things started to fall apart. I became consumed by work, and Lily drifted away, spending more time with her friends, especially Hannah Clark. I didn't realize how much Hannah's influence was driving a wedge between us until it was too late, and our marriage fell apart. Fast forward. I'm back at the gym, working to regain my fitness. Nina, my personal trainer, really pushes me during our sessions. What's driving me? Well, sex, love, and happiness, mostly sex. After my divorce, I wanted to make myself appealing again. I'd let myself go over the years, and the weight gain was clear. Back in 2012, Lily and I seemed like the ideal couple, the football player and the dancer. I was immediately drawn to her looks, but I wasn't the star quarterback. I was a lineman at a small college. As time passed, the muscles I once had softened, and my weight crept up as I spent more hours at a desk. My name is William Alexander Davis, though most people call me Will. People have even compared me to Jared Matthews with my messy blonde hair and round face. After college, I secured a job at Silent Network Solutions, SNS, a company that installs and monitors networks. Lily worked at Macy's, and for a while we seemed happy, at least for the first 3 years. But the last 2 years were tough. We were constantly arguing, and Hannah didn't help. She was Lily's best friend from college, bitter and man-hating. After her divorce, Lily started spending more time with Hannah, and soon, girls' night out became a regular occurrence. I tried to set boundaries, but the outings only increased, and things continued to deteriorate. Work didn't make it easier either. I'd been recently promoted and was working long hours, while Lily grew more distant. Our arguments became more frequent, and Hannah's influence was a constant issue. I felt like I was fighting to save our marriage, but Lily seemed to retreat further into her friendship with Hannah. In the end, we both let the marriage unravel. I made efforts to fix things, suggesting counseling and trying to lose weight, but Lily seemed checked out. We got caught in a toxic cycle, and eventually the marriage ended. Even though I knew our marriage was in trouble, its end still took me by surprise. Lily had been unhappy for a while, but recently, she'd seemed to be in a better mood. Maybe I didn't ask the tough questions because I was afraid of the answers. I didn't suspect cheating yet, but I knew that if something didn't change, that was where we were headed. What I feared the most was that she'd choose Hannah over me, which would destroy our marriage. One Saturday, I came home early to find Lily and Hannah dressed up to go out. The moment they saw me, their laughter stopped. Lily smiled, but Hannah gave me a look that was more of a smirk. The tension in the room was palpable, with Hannah mocking me and dropping hints I hadn't fully processed, suggesting Lily had been unfaithful. I snapped, punching the wall near Hannah's face, my anger and heartbreak getting the best of me. Lily didn't deny Hannah's accusations, and I realized our marriage was finished. I confronted Lily, and she admitted that she hadn't tried to save our relationship. I told her to leave, and not long after, I moved out. Though I briefly entertained thoughts of revenge, I realized there was nothing to gain. We had no kids, no property, and our marriage had only lasted 5 years. My boss, Sophia Bennett, helped me regain focus and introduced me to Carly Morgan, a divorce attorney who made the process as smooth as possible. The divorce was finalized quickly, though each meeting with Lily was tough. To avoid more prolonged contact, I gave her most of our savings. A few months later, the divorce was final, and my dream of a future with Lily was gone. Although Lily and I didn't have much contact during the divorce, Brownwood is a small town, so I occasionally saw her around. One night, I spotted her at City Lights with Ethan Cooper, a shift supervisor at the battery plant. It didn't take long for the pieces to fall into place. Hannah had mentioned Ethan a few months before, and now I knew it was him. Jake was probably Jake Montgomery, another guy Lily was involved with. Both of them were arrogant and thought they could have anyone, but I decided confronting them wasn't worth it. Without solid proof, it would have been pointless, and Lily wasn't worth the trouble. After seeing them together, I withdrew completely. I stopped socializing and buried myself in work, using food as my escape. My weight ballooned to 345 pounds. By the spring of 2014, after a year of self-pity, I knew something had to change. I cleaned myself up, started eating healthier, and joined a gym. The results were slow and inconsistent, but it was during this time that I realized I couldn't do it alone. That's when I met Nina Parker, the owner of Main Street Fitness. Nina was a former dancer who'd transitioned into fitness training, and she had a reputation at the gym. Though she appeared tough, she had a supportive side, especially when it came to keeping the men in line. After weeks of making little progress, she caught me sneaking a McDonald's bag into the locker room and called me out. Embarrassed, but more determined than ever, I laughed it off. Then Nina threw down the gauntlet. If I wanted to make real progress, I needed to find genuine motivation to get serious about my weight loss. A few days later, I admitted that my motivation was simple. It was her. The idea of spending time with someone like Nina was enough to push me. I knew it was a fantasy, but it was the spark I needed. To my surprise, she didn't dismiss me. Instead, she came up with a plan. If I lost 80 pounds in 8 months, I could take her to the Christmas ball at the Jacobs Hotel, one of the most elegant events in town. But she didn't stop there. Nina set smaller milestones too. At 30 pounds, we'd start ballroom dance lessons to prepare for the ball, and at 60 pounds, we'd go on a casual dinner date to get comfortable with each other. It wasn't exactly the motivation I'd imagined, but it was enough to get me off my ass and start working harder. The thought of taking Nina to that ball kept a constant smile on my face. She noticed it right away and raised an eyebrow. "Will boy," she said in her no-nonsense tone. "Just so we're clear, no funny business, and I reserve the right to change the deal at any time." My grin faded, and I said seriously, "That's fine, Nina, but don't play me for an idiot. I've been through that already. I won't stand for it again." "Got it." She looked at me for a beat, then nodded. "Got it." From then on, I took things more seriously. Nina's challenge worked better than I expected. As I started to picture us dancing together, it motivated me to watch what I ate. The people at the gym noticed the changes, and when they asked, I gave vague responses about wanting to get back into dating. But Chris, a gym buddy of mine, wasn't fooled. "So, who's the girl?" he asked one day while I struggled through a set of squats. "What?" I grunted, trying to focus. "Who's the girl you're working out for?" he repeated, a grin on his face. I tried to deflect, but Chris's sharp mind caught on quickly. "Holy shit, it's Miss T, isn't it?" I explained the situation. Nina had agreed to go to the Christmas ball with me if I lost the weight, but there were no romantic strings attached. It was strictly about getting fit. Unfortunately, Chris couldn't keep his mouth shut, and soon, rumors were spreading through the gym like wildfire. One afternoon, I was mid-set when I heard Nina's furious voice behind me. "What the hell have you been telling people?" she snapped. "I told you. I'm not sleeping with you." I tried to explain myself, but she cut me off, accusing me of spreading lies. She ordered me to pack up and leave her gym. I felt humiliated but kept my cool, insisting I hadn't told anyone anything like that. It was only after the fact that I realized it was Chris's gossip that had blown everything out of proportion. Later, Chris came to me sheepish and apologetic. He admitted to exaggerating the details. I told him to fix it or there'd be trouble. I left the gym, furious, unsure of how to salvage the situation. A few hours later, Nina called, apologizing for overreacting and asking if we could meet. We agreed to meet at McDonald's. When I arrived, Nina was sitting with her daughter, Chloe. As we sat down, Nina apologized for her outburst, admitting she'd lost her temper. I didn't let it go that easily. I reminded her that I wasn't going to be made a fool of again. Realizing I needed to cool down, I turned to Chloe, playfully asking if she'd share her fries. Her giggle lightened the mood, and Nina admitted that the rumors had struck a nerve, which is why she'd blown up. "Will boy," she said quietly, I'd like you to stay at the gym if you can forgive me. I sighed, realizing that Nina was genuinely sorry. I couldn't blame her for being upset after the way things had been twisted. And Chris Foster? I asked. He's on thin ice, but at least he apologized, she replied. I didn't mention the threat I'd made to Chris. That would come later. All right, Nina, I said. Apology accepted, but there's something you need to know. She looked at me, confused. The rumors have changed the way people see me at the gym, mostly for the better. I've been upfront about our agreement. There's nothing sexual involved, and I've made that clear. Her expression softened. Thank you. That means a lot to me. Never ends up with the princess, I muttered under my breath. Stop with the ogre talk, Will boy, she snapped. I don't want to hear it. Just then, Chloe chimed in. Mommy, you said a bad word. And we all laughed. Chloe started calling me Will Bear and teasing me about ogres, which made both Nina and me smile again. Later that night, Nina and I sat down privately to talk. She confessed that her outburst earlier had been misdirected. It wasn't about me. It was about how she'd always been boxed into the sexy Nina stereotype. She explained how her past as an exotic dancer to pay for college still haunted her, despite the fact that it had helped her meet her ex-husband, David Hayes. Together, they had opened the gym, but when David left her, he also left her with debt, a young daughter, and a business she could barely keep afloat. She revealed that, while David had convinced her to get breast implants, she hated them. They had become a symbol of her past life, and despite her resentment, they were what kept her business alive. She'd always dreamed of becoming a physical therapist, but juggling motherhood and running a business had made that dream feel out of reach. As she spoke, I could see the burden in her eyes, the weight of unfulfilled hopes and the pressure of responsibility. I encouraged her to think about finishing her degree, and for the first time in a long while, she seemed relieved to talk about it. By the end of the night, Nina and I agreed to be friends. I spent time entertaining Chloe Hayes, who was a ball of energy. It was hard not to see how much both of them needed a stable presence in their lives. Over the next few weeks, I lost my first 20 pounds. Nina pushed me harder than ever in the gym, and Chloe cheered me on from the sidelines. She even gave me a new nickname, Will Buns, which quickly caught on at the gym. Everyone laughed, but I managed to negotiate with Nina for Will Bear instead, which I thought was a fair deal. As I hit my 30-pound weight loss goal, I knew it was time to start the dance lessons. The ballroom at the Jacobs Hotel wasn't as grand as some places, but it had its charm. The first time I held Nina close for a lesson, I almost couldn't believe it. My footwork improved quickly, and by the time I approached my 40-pound goal, Nina was impressed by how smooth our dances had become. We hardly ever stepped on each other's toes, and the closeness of the dance made me feel like we were in our own little world. One day, Nina asked to speak with me in her office. Will boy, she began. I need to modify our arrangement. Intrigued, I agreed. She explained that a young woman named Olivia Sanders, who worked out at the gym, had asked for a similar deal. Olivia, a senior at St. Catherine's, wanted to lose 40 pounds before graduation. Olivia had heard about my own weight loss journey and felt I could relate to her struggles. Though I wasn't sure at first, I agreed to help her, especially after hearing about her past. Olivia's ex-boyfriend had treated her poorly, and I could see how much she needed someone who understood what it felt like to feel stuck. My workouts with Olivia started right after my sessions with Nina, and her commitment inspired me. Within weeks, I hit my 50-pound goal ahead of schedule. I felt stronger than I had in years. Nina and Chloe invited me to a July 4th picnic on the Brownwood Square. The evening was perfect. The fireworks were stunning, and Chloe, as usual, was full of energy. Nina joked about wearing a large fake diamond ring to ward off unwanted attention. She clarified that my role was purely as a friend, but she appreciated my support. As we talked, Nina opened up about her dating life, admitting she'd rarely dated seriously since her divorce, though she had a casual arrangement with someone. I teased her about being a lucky dog, but we both laughed, knowing that our friendship was something special. Everything was going smoothly until a drunk guy started bothering Nina. She held her ground, but when Chloe needed to use the bathroom, I offered to take her. Since the women's line was long, I took Chloe into the men's room and stood guard. When we came out, I saw the same drunk guy with two of his friends harassing Nina. Her tense posture made it clear she was upset. I quickly leaned in and kissed Nina on the cheek, playing the role of her boyfriend to get the guys to back off. As the fireworks began, one of the men muttered something inappropriate. The noise gave me the cover I needed. I stepped forward, used the distraction, and sucker punched the guy, knocking him out cold. His friends scrambled to drag him away. A few bystanders cheered, but I just sat next to Nina, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. She leaned in and whispered, "Feel better?" I chuckled. "Much." As the fireworks continued, Chloe climbed into my lap, and we enjoyed the rest of the show. When it was over, I carried her on my shoulders as we walked Nina and Chloe to their car. On the way, I caught sight of us in a store window. A man with a little girl on his shoulders, walking alongside a beautiful woman. The image stuck with me. At the car, Nina thanked me with a kiss on the cheek, saying it was a night Chloe would always remember. Just as they were about to drive off, I saw Ryan Richards, the drunk guy from earlier, and his friends looking for trouble. They'd clearly come back for revenge. I tried to defend myself, but they quickly overpowered me. The police showed up before things escalated too far. I drove myself to the ER, bruised but otherwise fine. The nurse who treated me, Maya Clark, was someone I vaguely knew. She took care of me with a calm efficiency that felt oddly comforting. As I lay there, processing the night's events, I couldn't help but think about Sophia, who still kept in touch with Maya and her husband, Lucas Reed, despite him now working at Grim Engineering Solutions. Maya laughed when I asked if she was the ER nurse. "I usually work in the children's ward," she explained, filling in for someone. After getting me signed in, Dr. Brooke Ellis, an older doctor with a bit of humor, examined my bruises. "So, fight much?" he joked, poking my ribs. I winced but tried to laugh it off. Thankfully, the x-rays showed my ribs were only bruised, and I was prescribed pain meds before heading home. What a night, I thought as I lay back. What's next? The following day at work, Sophia immediately noticed the bruises. "I hope the other guy looks worse," she teased. But I explained it wasn't just one guy, it was several. She nodded, her expression a mix of concern and light-hearted disbelief. She advised me to lay low with clients until the bruising faded. A few days later, Nina came to check on me. She was upset I hadn't called her from the ER, and looked guilty when I explained that it was Ryan and his buddies who'd knocked me out. I reassured her that it was my fault for starting the fight, but her repeated emphasis on us being just friends stung a little. It was clear that's all we would ever be. It was time to accept it. I shifted my focus to dating again, trying to move past the emotional pull Nina still had on me. While Nina and I remained close friends, I started going out with women from the gym and work. Some of those dates ended back at my apartment, but they felt empty, like hollow one-night stands. Olivia, though, was different. She was a bright spot in the midst of all the confusion. She worked hard in our sessions, and the transformation she made was incredible. One day, after I found myself staring at her in yoga pants, she caught me and teased, "It's been a while since a nice guy looked at me like that." I blushed, but we both laughed it off. 6 weeks later, I had hit my 60-pound weight loss goal, and Olivia had lost 30 pounds herself. She wasn't quite at her target, but she was so close. To celebrate my progress, I planned a date with Nina. I reminded myself it wasn't a romantic date, just two friends hanging out. When I arrived at Nina's house, Chloe greeted me excitedly, clearly looking forward to our plans. I met Mrs. Collins, their elderly neighbor who watched Chloe, and she complimented me on how good I looked in my suit. When Nina came down the stairs, wearing a stunning little black dress, I had to remind myself once again, we were just friends. Dinner at Desto was fantastic. Nina was hit on by one guy, but she politely turned him down and spent the rest of the evening with me. We danced, and during the slower songs, I couldn't help but imagine what it would be like if things were different between us. By the end of the night, She gave me a friendly kiss on the cheek, thanking me for being a perfect gentleman. As I drove home, I realized I needed to move on. I needed to find someone who could be a real romantic possibility. But fate had other plans. A few days later, Olivia hit her goal weight, and we scheduled a date to celebrate. When I picked her up, I was blown away by how much she had transformed. She wore knee-high lace-up boots, tight jeans, and a blood-red corset that hugged her curves. "Damn, girl," I said, completely stunned. Olivia giggled, spinning around to show off, her dark brown eyes sparkling with confidence. I couldn't help but admire how beautiful and self-assured she had become. Apparently, even a guy like me could still say the right thing sometimes. To my surprise, Olivia chose Sherman's Worth for dinner, a casual seafood joint off the interstate, instead of one of Brownwood's upscale restaurants. When I raised an eyebrow, she laughed. "Well, boy, I plan on dancing all night. A light salad is perfect, and anything heavier would probably make my corset pop." I chuckled, thinking that might not be the worst thing. After a fun dinner, we went to the Strobe, a popular nightclub, and danced the night away. Olivia was turning heads, and when another guy asked to dance with her, she asked for my permission. Though I reminded her it was her night, she made it clear she was with me and danced by my side most of the time. That was when Sueya, someone from my past, showed up, dressed provocatively and flanked by two men. She tried to provoke me with snide comments about my weight. I fired back with insults of my own, which caused her enough embarrassment for her friends to pull her away. One of the men, Hawthorne, apologized for the disruption and sent over a bottle of champagne to smooth things over. Olivia and I accepted, enjoying it in the VIP section before heading back to the dance floor for more carefree fun. Later, we took a long walk, and Olivia snuggled close to me. By the time we reached the end of the path, we couldn't resist the chemistry between us any longer. We kissed, and the passion between us was undeniable. "Take me to your apartment," she whispered, and we barely made it inside before things got heated. The night was full of fiery passion, and when we woke up the next morning, we were wrapped in each other's arms. It was a feeling I had missed. A week later, I was back at the gym with Nina, who had clearly been waiting to say something. "What did you do to that girl?" she asked with amusement in her voice. "Confused," I responded. "Why? Is she okay?" Nina laughed. "Better than okay. Olivia's been floating on air since your date. She thinks you walk on water." I smiled but admitted, "I don't think we'll be long-term. She's too young, and she deserves someone without all my baggage." Nina gave me a strange look before packing up her things. "You're an unusual one, Will boy." At least she didn't call me nice or safe. Over the next month and a half, I reached the 70-pound mark. Olivia and I went out several times, enjoying ourselves both inside and outside the bedroom. We grew close as friends, but I knew that our connection wasn't strong enough for a lasting relationship. It was bittersweet, but we both understood. One evening, Olivia and I went to a Crusader football game. Throughout the night, she kept glancing over her shoulder, and I soon realized why. It was her ex, Ryan Williams, glaring at us from a distance. Olivia laughed it off, casually mentioning she'd spread some embarrassing rumors about him, which probably explained his angry stare. I joked that I'd better stay on her good side, and she teased me back, reminding me how easy it was to have fun with her. We both knew, though, that our connection was shifting from romantic to platonic. Olivia admitted she cared for me deeply, but we both understood that it wasn't enough for a lifetime commitment. We ended the night with a sweet, lingering kiss, knowing we'd always be good friends. A week later, she started dating a guy named Max Carter, someone she'd met at the game, and I was genuinely happy for her. By November, I'd pushed myself hard to lose the last 10 pounds and hit my 80-pound weight loss goal. Nina invited me to join her and Chloe for Thanksgiving, which I gladly accepted, since I wasn't heading back to Wisconsin. Nina had started new Thanksgiving traditions with Chloe, including serving meals to the less fortunate before their own dinner. We spent the morning at the Lighthouse Mission, helping to serve food. Chloe, with her fearless charm, won over everyone there, and I couldn't help but feel humbled by how much joy she brought to the people we were helping. Thanksgiving dinner at Nina's wasn't traditional, but it was delicious, spicy kale salad and herb-stuffed turkey breast instead of the usual heavy fare. Afterward, Nina thanked me for trusting her and not filling up on mashed potatoes at the mission. I also told her I'd reached my 80-pound goal. "Good," she said, smiling. "I've already bought my dress for the Christmas ball, and I don't think you'll be disappointed." The night of the ball approached quickly, and I was excited. I rented a tux and even booked a limo to make it special. When I arrived at Nina's house, Mrs. Collins answered the door and complimented me on how sharp I looked. Chloe pouted a little about not having a dress as pretty as her mom's, but I promised I'd take her shopping for one soon. Then I saw Nina. She was wearing a stunning blue dress that made my heart stop. For a moment, I felt like I was looking at an angel. Her sapphire gown flowed gracefully over her curves, and her blonde hair was pinned up elegantly, highlighting the delicate lines of her neck. A white gold necklace with diamond teardrops shimmered against her skin, and she looked every bit like an adult fairy princess. I stood there speechless, utterly struck. "Nina, you look incredible," I finally managed to say. "Thank you," she replied, her smile lighting up the room. "I hope you're not disappointed." "Not possible," I said, offering my arm as we headed to the limo. The Jacobs Hotel was decked out for the Christmas ball, and despite the opulent decorations and the sea of beautiful gowns, Nina drew all the attention when she stepped out of the limo. In my eyes, she was the most stunning woman in the room. We danced for an hour, her body warm and close against mine. She teased me the entire time, turning down every man who asked her to dance, focusing only on me. I saw a few familiar faces, including Hannah, but I made sure to avoid her. During a break, a man approached Nina, and I could tell immediately that something was off. She froze when she saw him. "David?" she said softly, her voice filled with surprise. "Angela," he replied warmly. I recognized him instantly, David Campbell, a well-known lawyer in his 30s with political aspirations. He barely acknowledged me, but Nina introduced us, and I realized he was sizing me up. His focus was entirely on Nina as he complimented her, ignoring me completely. "Sorry, Dan," Nina said firmly. "I'm here with Will, and my dance card is full." After he left, Nina asked me if I'd like to take a walk. Once we were away from the ballroom, she turned to me, her eyes filled with emotion. "I'm so sorry, Will. I can't believe he treated you like that. Dan's been possessive lately, and I never wanted you to feel disrespected." I smiled and reassured her. "Nina, I'm here with the most beautiful woman in Brownwood. That's all that matters." She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and we returned to the ballroom. She stopped at the restroom to freshen up, and I waited outside. But soon, an unwelcome voice interrupted my thoughts. "Lily?" I said, forcing a polite smile. She looked good, but I could see she'd gained some weight since our divorce. Her date was Leo Jacobs, the man I'd seen at the strobe. After a brief, tense exchange, Nina returned, kissed me deeply, and gave Lily a subtle, dismissive glance. Nina greeted Leo with polite detachment, and I couldn't help but feel grateful to have her by my side as we rejoined the evening. Lily looked surprised, but Nina quickly shifted her attention back to me, pressing herself against me with a mischievous grin. She reached into her purse, pulled out a small, dark blue piece of underwear that matched her dress, and swapped it for my tuxedo pocket square. "Shall we dance some more before our real workout begins?" she teased, leaving me speechless. I nodded, utterly stunned, as she led me back into the ballroom. Before leaving, I turned to Lily, a quiet smile on my lips. "By the way, I saw your friend Hannah earlier. I thought she'd be working the parking lot with all the luxury cars outside," I said casually. Leo snickered, and Lily's face flushed. Trying to hide his amusement as Lily glared at him, Nina and I continued dancing. She muttered, "I can't believe that witch." I laughed. "Witches and drama. Oh my!" Nina chuckled, pressing herself closer to me as we moved to the music. She teased me with playful glances, and by the time the song ended, I was completely flustered. "What were you saying?" she grinned. shifting the conversation. I asked if she knew Leo Jacobs. Nina laughed, explaining that she was familiar with many of Brownwood's elite, thanks to David. She then revealed that David had run off with Harriet Green, a scandal that had rocked the town. Despite the drama, Nina had managed to stay on good terms with most of those families. After some more teasing banter, Nina reminded me that she'd like the underwear back. "When did you even take it off?" I asked. She winked. "Earlier. I had a feeling we'd run into Lily. My plan worked, didn't it?" As we danced again, I couldn't help but feel like I was living in a fairy tale. But as the evening wore on, the playful atmosphere shifted when Nina asked a more serious question in the limo. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, her tone soft but thoughtful. I joked, "Well, I'd say the night ends with a cheeky kiss." She laughed but then clarified, "No, I mean I want to know about your weight loss journey. I think you could lose another 20 pounds. It could be life-changing for you." I chuckled, calling her a cheerleader, but she grinned and teased, "Well, I've already got my Santa's helper outfit ready for the children's ward Christmas party at the hospital." She convinced me to join, and we both laughed at the thought of me playing Rudolph. On Saturday, I escorted Nina and Chloe, both dressed as elves, to the party. Nina didn't look great in her festive outfit, but even trying to be cute, she still managed to stir something inside me. When we arrived, we found out the scheduled Santa had fallen ill. Instantly, both Nina and Maya, the orange-haired nurse, turned their attention to me. Moments later, I found myself dressed as Santa. Playing Santa was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. The children's Christmas wishes were so pure and touching that I struggled to keep my emotions in check. Nina, too, had tears in her eyes. I did my best to stay jolly, handing out presents and keeping the spirit alive before slipping away, deeply moved by the experience. Afterward, I collapsed in a back room, utterly drained. Nina and Maya followed me in, thanking me profusely. Nina mentioned one last little girl wanted to sit on Santa's lap. "Ho ho ho, little girl," I joked, trying to keep the mood light. "Want to sit on Santa's lap? You've got to be very good or very bad for it to work." "In your dreams, Santa." Nina laughed. "Ouch," I replied, making them both laugh harder. "I'll go get her," Nina said, leaving the room. "She knows it's me, right?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Nope," Nina smiled mischievously. "I told her you were taking care of Santa's sleigh." She shot me a seductive look as she added, "By the way, Santa, I've been a very good girl this year." I groaned, and Maya chuckled. Moments later, Nina returned with Chloe and some staff members. Chloe jumped onto my lap, all smiles. "Hi, Santa. Remember me?" she asked, beaming up at me. "Of course," I said, slipping into my Santa voice. "I've been watching you." Her eyes went wide, and then she whispered her Christmas wish in my ear. "Santa, I want a real daddy." That hit me hard. How could a sweet little girl like her be abandoned by her father? I squeezed her tightly and replied, "Santa will see what he can do." She added a request for a pink bike, which I could easily manage. "Santa Bear will make it happen," I said, giving her a big hug. She giggled and ran off, calling me Santa Bear. Then Nina sat on my lap, grinning. A few of the staff catcalled. "So, little girl, what do you want for Christmas?" I asked, staying in character. Nina leaned in and whispered, "If you lose 100 pounds, I'll give you a lap dance you won't forget." I groaned loudly, and the whole room burst into laughter as Nina strutted away, her triumph evident. After I changed out of the costume, I joined Nina and Chloe in the lobby. We joked about Santa's muddy sleigh, and Nina teased me about guys hitting on her while we waited. Later, over lunch, Nina asked if Chloe had mentioned the pink bike. I confirmed I already had it on layaway, which made her smile. Then, she asked about Chloe's other wish, but I kept that one to myself. Nina grew serious and reminded me she was serious about the lap dance promise. I hesitated, explaining that it wasn't about her. It was about the difficulty of crossing those lines between us. I told her how her keeping things friendly made it easy for me to joke around, but if she ever truly turned her charm on, I'd be lost. She understood, but then she explained why she had made the offer in the first place. Because she trusted me. She wanted to give me something special without crossing a line. She shared that her relationship with David was different because it lacked the emotional depth of what we had. Nina offered a compromise. A striptease instead of a lap dance. Something memorable but safe. I sat quietly, processing everything. Finally, I agreed, and Nina lit up with excitement. We both laughed at how this might be a bad idea, but neither of us seemed to care. The holidays brought up a mix of emotions for me. Last year's divorce had left me with a deep loneliness, and while I'd kept busy this year, my thoughts kept circling back to Nina and Chloe, who had gone to Dallas for Christmas. I wished Nina would open up about whatever was holding her back from going home, but she hadn't. I missed them. They were constantly on my mind. And I wasn't blind. I knew I was falling in love with Nina. I already adored Chloe, but I was also slipping into a fantasy with Nina, even though I knew it would probably end in heartbreak. I accepted that being her friend was probably all I could hope for. But maybe, just maybe, friends with benefits wasn't entirely out of reach. She'd offered me that lap dance, so I knew she didn't find me repulsive. And that offer kept me motivated, pushing myself to the gym 5 times a week to fend off holiday weight gain. It helped pass the time until I could see them again on New Year's Eve. A few days before Christmas, to my surprise, Lily called. She wanted to apologize for what happened at the Christmas ball and assured me she wouldn't stay long. Maybe it was the holiday spirit or just a fleeting sense of generosity, but I agreed. When I opened the door, she stood there, clearly made up for the occasion. Despite the extra weight she had gained, she still looked striking in her own way. The familiar spark of attraction flickered in me, unsettling me more than I'd like to admit. "Thanks for meeting me, Will boy," she began, her voice soft and hesitant. "I know our last meeting didn't go so well." I paused, unsure of how to respond. No, it didn't. I wanted to say a few things, but it turned into something else. She looked at me then, her eyes reflecting an unfamiliar vulnerability. "I know," she said quietly. "I came here to make things right if I can." I took a slow breath, trying to steady myself. "Lily," I said, my tone firm, "we didn't part on good terms, so why are we even having this conversation?" She stayed silent for a moment, then stepped inside, looking around the apartment. Her gaze lingered on some of the furniture, remnants of our past. "Some of this looks familiar," she said softly, almost wistfully. I nodded, though I wasn't sure why I still had it all. I couldn't afford to replace it. By the time I could, I figured it was better to save for a house. She gave a small, sad smile. "Still thinking about that house?" "Of course," I replied, my voice colder than I intended. "I still have dreams. You didn't take all of them." Her expression tightened at the sharpness in my tone, but she quickly composed herself. "I'm sorry, Will. More than you'll ever know. For everything." I sighed, the weight of everything we had gone through settling over me. "What do you want, Lily? It's been 2 years. Apologies don't undo what happened." "I know I acted terribly," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I know I hurt you, and for that, I'm truly sorry. Seeing you with that beautiful woman at the ball, I realized just how much I've lost." There was a brief pause as I fought the urge to respond with bitterness. Instead, I stayed silent. "I meant it as a compliment," she continued, voice tinged with regret. "You looked handsome that night, and I was jealous. I didn't trust myself to speak at that moment. The words I wanted to say, sharp, hurtful, were right on the tip of my tongue. But I stayed quiet, focused on controlling my emotions. "I know I said some cruel things," she added, her voice lower now, "but I haven't been with Hannah in over a year." I raised an eyebrow. "Trouble in paradise?" Her shoulders slumped. "Yes," she admitted softly. "I was too caught up in the wrong things, and it took me a long time to see it. I finally woke up, Will." I didn't respond right away. I just watched her, letting her words hang in the air. There was a time when I would have clung to every apology, every sign of regret. But not anymore. "I regret everything," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I regret letting Hannah pull me away from you. I know I ruined everything we had. You tried and I gave up. I let her world swallow me whole, and I lost myself in it. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of anger. I don't need to hear about your mistakes, Lily. I don't need you to explain the mess you made. It's not about that, she said, shaking her head. It's about realizing how much I hurt you, how much I lost. I woke up, Will. After everything, after the mess with Hannah, I finally saw who I'd become. And I'm ashamed. I took a long breath, trying to stay calm. You don't owe me any of this, Lily. We're divorced. You did what you did, and now I'm doing my best to move on. I know, she said, her voice barely audible. But I needed to apologize. You didn't deserve any of it. I know what I did to you, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I looked at her, my heart hardening in ways I didn't know it could. What about Leo? I asked, unable to stop myself. How does he fit into all of this? She hesitated before answering. We've been seeing each other since that weekend with Hannah and Alex Foster. Leo's kind, but we're not exclusive. It's complicated. Yeah, I said, the bitterness creeping into my voice again. It must be tough to commit to someone when you're okay with a little extra on the side. Her face fell at my words. I know, she said softly. I see the irony, but I'm trying to put the pieces back together. I see what I've lost. I know what I did to you, and I think maybe I'll always love you. I felt a tightness in my chest, but I forced the words out. I understand, but we'll never be together again. You threw away everything we had like it meant nothing. And honestly, the idea of getting back with you makes me sick. Her face showed the hurt, but I pressed on. I'm moving on, Lily, and for the first time in a long time, I think I'm doing just fine. She glanced at me, her voice fragile. Is it because of her? The woman at the ball. I laughed, but it came out dry. No, we're just friends. Friends with benefits? She shot back, her eyes narrowing. None of your business, I said sharply. Sorry, she murmured, her voice softening. It's just, after seeing that kiss you two shared, and her little, well, everything, I can't compete with someone like her. I shook my head, the frustration building again. Even Hannah couldn't compete with her, I said, my tone hard. Neither of you could ever compare to Nina. Not because of how she looks, but because of who she is. Lily looked at me, her face confused. Character, I said, my voice steady. Nina has something you never did. She'd never betray someone she loves. She'd walk away before she'd ever cheat. But you, Lily, back then you would've. I loved you, but you were willing to throw it all away. I never looked at anyone else after we became a couple. You were the sexiest woman I'd ever seen, at least to me. But you, I said, my voice tight with frustration. You cared more about what everyone else thought than about the man who loved and married you. You let someone convince you that our love wasn't worth fighting for, that it was okay to betray me. In the end, you gave up on us. The anger I had buried for so long resurfaced, a wave I couldn't contain. I took a step closer to her. So, you still love me? Does it matter? It means nothing now. I don't need that kind of love, Lily. Her face crumpled as tears began to spill down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice thick with regret. I know it doesn't change anything, but I am sorry. I hope you find someone who loves you the way I should have. She turned toward the door, her shoulders shaking as she made her way out. I'm so sorry, Will, she said again, just before she left. The sound of the door closing behind her felt like an echo in the empty space she left. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe I just missed Nina and Chloe more than I wanted to admit. But before I knew it, I found myself in a Santa suit at Sacred Heart Hospital on Christmas Day. It was supposed to be a distraction, but somehow it helped me gain perspective. The children and families I met, facing battles far bigger than mine, made my problems seem insignificant. The sting of my divorce didn't disappear, but it wasn't as overwhelming anymore. I realized, for the first time in months, that I'd be okay. Even if things with Nina and Chloe didn't unfold the way I hoped, I would survive. When Nina and Chloe returned to Brownwood on New Year's Eve, There was a quiet peace that settled over me. Things felt right again until midnight. Nina came back stressed from a work trip to Dallas, but as the evening wore on, I could see her relax, her worries easing in the presence of family and friends. We spent the night at Miss Collins's house, surrounded by neighbors, but no one from the gym. I noticed how Nina kept her personal life and work separate, a subtle boundary I respected. As midnight approached, Chloe, who had taken a long nap earlier to stay awake, was still wide-eyed and eager to celebrate. When the clock struck 12, she kissed Nina first, then leaned in to kiss me on the cheek. "Now you have to kiss Mama," she giggled. I laughed, teasing her. "You never know what happens when a princess kisses an ogre. That only happens with frogs," she squealed. "My friend's mom kissed lots of frogs and just got warts." We all laughed, but Nina quickly shut that down with a playful, "Enough of that, Missy." Then, with a mischievous glint in her eyes, she kissed me. This wasn't just a casual peck. It was something more, a moment that felt private and meaningful, like the world around us had disappeared for just a heartbeat. After pulling away, Nina whispered, "Crap, Will, you need to make weight soon." Like so many others, I threw myself into the gym after the holidays, but my reasons were less about guilt and more about dropping those final 12 pounds. After that New Year's kiss, my mind was consumed with what Nina had promised me if I hit my goal. I had a false start early in January, claiming I'd made weight, but Nina quickly reminded me that cutting water weight didn't count. Valentine's Day was approaching, and I asked Chloe to be my Valentine. She giggled, wrapping her arms around me. "Will Bear, I'm already your Valentine." Later that night, I cornered Nina, a grin on my face. "I made weight 2 days ago. Finally." She laughed. "About time. I'll come over after Chloe's asleep. Mrs. Collins has been on standby for 2 weeks, waiting for you to make weight." I was floored by her words. It wasn't just the anticipation of the night. It was the fact that she had been preparing for this for longer than I realized. When Nina knocked on my door that night, I could barely contain myself. She stepped inside with a large tote bag, her finger to her lips before I could speak. "The less you talk, the better this will go," she whispered in a low, husky voice. "Trust me." She handed me a CD and instructed me to get comfortable, then disappeared into the bathroom. A few minutes later, her voice called out from behind the door, "Start the music." I was taken aback when the first chords of Hailstorms, "I Get Off," filled the room, pulsing through the air. As the song played, Nina emerged from the bathroom in a blue and silver cheerleader outfit, a tight sweater and short skirt hugging her figure perfectly. Her ponytail swished behind her, and she looked like she'd stepped out of a dream. She rocked the look. "Nina," I stammered, my pulse quickening. "Will," she whispered, stepping closer. "This isn't just for you. It's for me." At that moment, a wave of realization hit me. Everything between us, everything I thought I understood about this was about to change. And for the first time in a long time, I felt scared. She kissed me deeply, then pulled back with a questioning look. "Since before the Christmas ball," I said, my voice low, "I couldn't focus on anyone but you." Her smile softened, warm and knowing. "Me too," she murmured. I was caught off guard.
No, David.
The regret for asking the question hit me instantly. Her expression shifted, becoming more serious.
No.
"Not since before I bought the dress for the ball. I think that's why he acted like a jerk that night. Even though we weren't together, he's possessive. The idea of taking my clothes off. That was then," I said, cutting her off, wanting to move forward. Nina's voice was filled with quiet excitement. "The last couple of months have been more than I expected. After our New Year's Eve kiss, I knew I'd go further than just dancing. The anticipation between us was palpable." She smiled mischievously. "Sorry if I blurred the lines a bit." "Well," I began cautiously, "all night long." She laughed, nodding. "Chloe's with Mrs. Collins tonight. We've got time." "Good," I said, my breath quickening as I struggled to stand with Nina still wrapped around me. We laughed as I carried her to the bedroom, unwrapping her playfully before dropping her onto the bed. She looked up at me with a smirk. "What?" she teased. "You're the most incredible person I've ever met," I said softly, my voice full of awe. "This is the best gift I've ever received." "Yes and no," I murmured, feeling her tense beneath my words. Yes, it was everything I fantasized about, but the top of my bucket list isn't just about being with the girl of my dreams. It's about making love to the woman of my dreams. The words hung in the air, and Nina went still. I could feel the shift in her. "I know you don't feel the same way I do," I said softly, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "That's okay. But what I want most isn't just the physical. It's making love to the love of my life. Someone who gives herself to me completely, just as I would give myself to her." I swallowed, my emotions raw. I thought I had that with Lily, but I was wrong. What happened tonight was incredible. Yes, because you're beautiful, but also because you care for me not just as a lover but as a friend. You're here with me in a way that matters. But sometimes, I see you pull away emotionally, Nina. I noticed. Nina was silent for a long moment. Then her voice came, small and vulnerable. "So, you have feelings for me?" I nodded, pulling her closer, my heartbeat loud in my ears. "Of course I do," I said softly. "I love you, Nina, more than just as a friend. It's not just your body that I'm in love with." For a moment, she didn't respond. Then, a small sob broke from her. "You don't know me, well boy," she whispered, her voice trembling. "If you did, you wouldn't think of me as some dream girl." We lay in silence, her words hanging between us, before she finally spoke again. "Did you know I've been married twice?" "No," I said gently, a pit forming in my stomach. "My first marriage was in Dallas," she continued, her voice quiet but steady. "I married my high school boyfriend, Charlie, right after graduation. We were happy at first, but then I got injured, and my volleyball career ended. I started dancing to make ends meet. Charlie didn't mind at first, but it started to wear on him. We fought a lot, especially when he started spending time with his ex-girlfriend, who had secretly had his kid years ago. I was young, angry, and hurt. I cheated with one of Charlie's friends. When the truth came out, our marriage ended." She paused, her eyes distant. "I was 20, a cheating ex-wife. Not exactly the dream most girls have." I listened, my heart aching for her. "After that, I met David. Karma's a bitch, right? I cheated on Charlie, and then David cheated on me. Once a cheater, always a cheater, I guess. How could anyone love someone like that?" She rolled away, burying her face in the pillow as she cried. I held her, my own tears threatening, but I held them back. After a long silence, I kissed the back of her neck and whispered, "Damn, Nina, I wish you could see yourself through my eyes." Her response caught me off guard. "How do you see me?" she asked, her voice quiet, filled with uncertainty and fear. I knew she was scared, afraid that I might see her the same way others had, just another pretty face. And it broke my heart. I took a deep breath, searching for the words, knowing they wouldn't be enough but still needing to say them. "I wish I had the words of a poet," I began. "But I'm just a guy who's incredibly lucky to be holding the most beautiful woman I've ever known." I paused, brushing a lock of hair from her face, my heart in my throat. "I won't say I love you the way you might want me to. You might think I'm confusing love with lust. Yes, I desire you, Nina, more than you could know. But it's more than that. You're incredible. Even though you struggle to see it, I do. You're not just a body. You're the woman who makes the gym come alive with her energy. You're the one who lights up when you talk about Chloe, about the gym, about what matters to you. I love how your laugh makes my day better. I admire the way you handle the chaos, how you deal with people and still keep your balance. I see you as a smart, tough businesswoman, and someone who's fiercely protective of her daughter and the people she loves. You're strong, Nina, but I know it wears you down. You're scared of letting someone in, afraid they might hurt you or Chloe, but your love, your passion, it would overwhelm the right man. You would be his world, and Chloe would be his moon. That's a gift that no one could take for granted." I paused to let my words sink in, and when she reached up to place my hand on her tear-streaked cheek, I brushed her hair back and kissed her ear softly. "You're remarkable, Nina. Thank you for tonight. I'll never forget it." We held each other quietly, drifting into sleep. The next morning, Nina was gone. I woke up to an empty space beside me, the coldness of her absence hitting me harder than I'd expected. Things had changed, but I didn't realize how awkward things would become. Nina was distant, her walls back up, and when we finally talked, I saw how she'd withdrawn. I thanked her for that night and promised not to bring it up again, which seemed to relieve her. Over time, we settled back into the routine we'd had before, like nothing had shifted. But it wasn't the same. I wasn't happy about it, but I had to accept it. We were just friends, nothing more. That truth hurt, but I had known from the start that if we went too far, I might be the one who got hurt. Weeks passed, and then one evening, there was a knock at my door. Nina stood there, clearly upset, her face streaked with tears. "Is Chloe okay?" I asked quickly, pulling her inside. "She's fine," Nina said, her voice shaky. "Will boy, I need a favor." She hesitated, then added, "Would you hold me tonight? Just as a friend." "Of course," I replied immediately, leading her to the couch. I held her as she cried into my chest. When she calmed down, I asked her what had happened. "David called," she whispered. "He's moving back to Brownwood and wants to be a part of Chloe's life again." I held her tightly as she wept, and when she finally quieted, I gently suggested she consider getting a lawyer involved. "I can't do that," she said, shaking her head. "I won't keep him away unless he's dangerous. David knows that, and he's using it against me. I can't deny Chloe the chance to know her father, even if he's been selfish." She sighed, frustrated. "It's just so unfair." Things were finally changing. "How are things changing?" I asked softly, hoping I was part of that change. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I'm sorry I've been distant. That night, it was more than I expected. The closeness after sharing things with you that I've never told anyone else. It scared me. It reminded me of how I felt when I was first married. I wasn't ready for that." She paused, and I could feel the weight of her words. "I'm not sure what we are now. I'm scared of what this could be. And now with David coming back, I don't know if I still have feelings for him." "I'm sorry, Will boy," she whispered. "I'm an emotional mess. I came here because I needed to feel safe. I know that's unfair to you." I sighed, opening my arms, and she flew into them, tears flowing freely. I pushed down my own feelings, wanting nothing more than to love her fully, but staying strong for her. Soon after, I ran into David at the gym. He looked like a god, and I couldn't help but feel small in comparison. How could I compete with someone like him or with guys like David Campbell? I had been feeling good about myself, but seeing David brought out the worst in me. He was surrounded by his friends, Ethan Cooper and Jake Montgomery, and a group of women were clearly checking him out. Nina had told me that David had been spending time with Chloe, trying to make amends. But deep down, I knew he wanted more than just to reconnect with his daughter. He wanted Nina back. One evening, as I held Nina close, I finally asked the question that had been on my mind for days. "Are you thinking about getting back with David?" She paused before responding, her voice uncertain. "No, but I can't deny I still have feelings for him. It's confusing." I understood better than she thought. I had dealt with similar emotions after my encounter with Lily the previous Christmas. I tried to comfort her, reassuring her that everything would be okay and that I was here for her, her emotional refuge. But, as much as I cherished being that safe space, it was excruciating. Holding her like this without being able to kiss or touch her the way I longed to felt like torture. As those thoughts swirled, I heard a voice calling my name. "Will boy," I groaned. "Crap," I muttered under my breath. It was Chris, along with Ethan Cooper, Jake Montgomery, and David. Ethan was wearing a smug grin, while David had a condescending smirk plastered on his face. Sensing a confrontation brewing, I took a deep breath and stayed calm. "So, you're the famous Will Bear my daughter always talks about?" David said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. She's a special girl, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Yes, she is, David agreed, his tone smug. Good stock thanks to me. His macho response rubbed me the wrong way, and I felt my anger rise. But I knew better than to let it show. Any outburst could jeopardize my job and bring trouble to Nina. David continued, I thought you'd be bigger, scarier, not some teddy bear. I'm not here to scare little girls, I shot back, adding, and you're not what I expected. Just some guy who abandoned his wife and daughter for a rich fling. David sneered. At least I didn't have to beg Nina to sleep with me. Pathetic. That did it. In one swift motion, I punched him in the stomach. He crumpled to his knees, gasping for air. I grabbed his hair and yanked his head back, seething. One more word about Nina, and I'll ruin you, I hissed. Before I could deliver another blow, Chris shouted, Be cool. I released David, realizing I'd already crossed a line. The adrenaline rush was gone, replaced by the realization that I hadn't done it for Nina. I had done it to protect my own pride. I walked away, heading toward Nina's office, my mind reeling. Nina came in shortly after, her eyes wide with concern. People told me what happened, she said quietly. I'm sorry, I said, guilt flooding in. I'll leave, if David's going to make trouble for you. She studied me for a moment, then shook her head. You don't need to leave. David won't press charges. His pride won't allow it. Besides, he's trying to buy the gym back for me. He wouldn't want to make this public. Are you selling? I asked, surprised. Yes, she said. I want to pursue my dream of becoming a physical therapist. I breathed a sigh of relief when she said she'd stay in Brownwood for at least 4 more years. I packed up my things, thinking that maybe it was over. But as I reached the door, Nina stopped me. Will boy, put your things back. I'm not kicking you out for defending me. She stepped closer, wrapped her arms around my neck, and kissed me, just like the night we shared before. The room erupted in cheers and whistles, but all I saw was her. I love you, she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Not just as a friend. That kiss, along with her confession, spread like wildfire. Rumors flew, and soon enough, people at the gym were congratulating me. We became known as Beauty and the Beast. Are you sure it doesn't bother you? Nina asked, still a little unsure. I smiled, pulling her into my arms. Nina, I said, I've never thought of myself as a pretty boy, but I never expected to be seen with someone who's so stunning. She laughed and elbowed me playfully, then met my eyes. You don't get to call me that anymore. Not when it's about you, she whispered. I kissed her deeply, feeling her finally relax in my arms. Okay, Angel, I teased. But I know my beauty loves to tease her man. With a grin, she replied, Chloe might need to stay at Mrs. Collins's tonight. Think the Beast can come out to play? Oh, I think we can make that happen, I said, my heart racing. In the months that followed, I learned a lot about Nina. Despite her teasing nature, she was more reserved in the bedroom than I'd expected. And as much as we shared our moments of happiness, reality set in. Life, after all, isn't a fairy tale. Even after landing the girl, the doubts crept in. Being with a beautiful woman can boost your ego, but it also makes you insecure. You're proud to have her. Yet there's always that nagging thought. Could she do better? It gnaws at you, especially when she enjoys the attention from other men. That insecurity started to show. Nina and I hit some rough patches, and one night, things got worse. She wore a form-fitting blouse and a short skirt, drawing more attention than usual. She loved it, and I hated it. Why are you acting like this? She snapped as we drove home. Nothing, I lied, though both of us knew the truth. Nonsense. Why are you acting like a sulking child? She pressed. I don't know, I muttered, struggling to find the words. It just feels like you're flaunting what's mine. Her anger flared, her eyes filling with tears. I've never given you a reason to think I'd cheat on you, she said, her voice shaking. You need to grow up and stop being so insecure. I shot back, hurt and frustrated. So when you're upset or scared, I'm supposed to be your safe place. But when I'm insecure, I need to grow up? Is that it? She fell silent, her gaze distant. When we reached her house, I told her I needed space. She looked hurt, but nodded and got out of the car. Back at my apartment, I hadn't even sat down before there was a knock at the door. Nina stood there, looking heartbroken, and without thinking, I pulled her into my arms. She clung to me, whispering, "Don't shut me out. Tell me what you're feeling. I may not like it, but I can handle it. Just don't give up on us." "I'm sorry too," I whispered, feeling the weight of everything between us. She cupped my face in her hands, her eyes full of raw emotion. "Well, boy, you were right. I've leaned on your strength and didn't give you the support you needed. I'm sorry for acting like a cold-hearted witch. Since David left, I've been in survival mode, protecting Chloe and myself. This is all new to me. I'm not good at this." I teased softly. "What? Apologizing?" She smirked, but her eyes remained serious. "I haven't been in a real relationship in years. There are things you need to understand if we're going to make this work. First, I'm not Lily. I'll never cheat on you. I've made that mistake before, and I'll never do it again. You can trust me. Second, I'll screw up sometimes, but I need you to forgive me when I do. I'll forgive you when you mess up, too. And lastly, you need to stop doubting yourself. Yes, I could find someone else, but I choose to be with you. You make me feel like I've found my dreams again." She paused, watching me with a mixture of hope and vulnerability. Then, her voice softened. "I think we could have something really special, Will. I know it'll take time, but I truly believe in us." A weight lifted off my shoulders as I looked at her, feeling my insecurities start to dissolve. "We'll figure it out together," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. She smiled, her hand gently brushing my cheek before she kissed me. Tenderly, with a softness that spoke volumes. Pulling back slightly, she whispered, "Just remember, baby, sex doesn't fix everything." I chuckled lightly, leaning in to whisper in her ear, "Maybe not, but it sure helps." That night, it did. We made progress in a way that felt both natural and hard-earned. I knew there were still walls to break down. My issues with her exhibitionism were still something I had to navigate, but for the first time I felt like I was truly trusting her. Nina wasn't Lily. She wasn't someone who'd play with my emotions. Nina was someone worth fighting for, and I knew I had to do the same. Nina had her own struggles with trust, shaped by 2 broken marriages and the constant suspicion that people only saw her for her looks and money. She'd been burned before, by people who wanted to take advantage of her, and I understood that fear. But, as we fought through our issues together, I felt closer to her than ever. We were both learning how to love, how to truly be there for each other, in a way neither of us had experienced before. The 3 of us, Nina, Chloe, and I, became an inseparable trio. With the spring winding down, I could see the uncertainty in Nina's eyes as she spoke about selling the gym. She hinted at needing to talk to me about something important. When she finally sold it to David, she made sure he signed away his parental rights to Chloe, making it clear that she wanted him entirely out of their lives. I admired her for that, and when she mentioned wanting Chloe to someday have a new father, someone who would love her unconditionally, it hit me just how much she was willing to build a new life with me as a part of it. Nina also decided to undergo breast reduction surgery, explaining that she no longer needed the physical reminder of her past. The new Nina, still stunning in her own way, was someone I had to adjust to, but I worked through it because it was her decision and I wanted to be supportive no matter what. As our relationship deepened, Nina invited me to join her and Chloe on a trip to Dallas, where I met her family at a cookout. To my surprise, they weren't the intimidating, judgmental figures I'd imagined. Most of them loved her, even if they didn't always agree with her past choices. Still, some of her relatives held grudges that were hard to ignore. I ended up in a conversation with her Aunt Laura, who warned me that I might hear some harsh things about Nina's history. I didn't hesitate to speak up, my voice firm. "I don't care what anyone says. I can't believe anyone would talk trash about a woman in front of the man who loves her." The words seemed to catch on quickly, and Nina, sitting beside me, teased. So you love me, huh? Duh, I replied, grinning. I'd shout it from the rooftops every time we're out in public if it wouldn't embarrass you. She smiled, a mixture of surprise and affection in her eyes. Well, people are already asking when we're getting married. I smiled back, a bit sheepish. I had planned to propose at a Crusader football game, but I needed to be sure of your answer first. She was taken aback, her eyes welling up slightly, but the emotion was clear. Later, I went to her father to ask for his blessing. At first, he was dismissive, telling me I didn't need his approval. But I insisted, explaining that it mattered to Nina, and therefore it mattered to me. After a brief pause, he relented, giving me his blessing and telling me to take care of his daughter, warning me not to hurt her like her last husband had. When I returned to Nina, a small group had gathered around her, including her mother and Aunt Laura. I knelt before her, taking her hand, as well as Chloe's. Nina, I began, feeling the significance of the moment weigh on me. I've loved you since the first time you told me to get off my fat bum and give you 5 more reps. Mommy, Chloe gasped, wide-eyed. Wilbert said bum. I laughed softly, turning my focus back to Nina. It was easy to fall for you because of your beauty, but the more I got to know you, the more I realized how incredible you are on the inside. I asked your father for his blessing to marry you and to become Chloe's dad. Nina, her mother, and her aunt looked to her father in shock, but he didn't say anything. Instead, Aunt Laura whispered, Well, I'll be damned. I smiled at Nina, then asked, Will you marry me? Chloe, still processing everything, piped up, But I already have a daddy. You're right. I smiled down at her. But maybe I could be Papa Bear too. With that, Nina knelt down and kissed me, the crowd around us bursting into cheers. Was that a yes? I asked, grinning, still in disbelief. Yes, Ryan Davis, she laughed. I'll marry you. The rest of the trip to Dallas passed in a blur. At the airport, Nina's father gave her and Chloe a tight hug, and her mother thanked me quietly, saying that they needed this. Back in Brownwood, I replaced the fake engagement ring I'd gotten Nina with a real one big enough to make her happy and to keep the wolves at bay, just as she jokingly said. We got married in December, at a small ceremony at St. Catherine's Chapel. What we saved on the wedding, we spent on a 2-week honeymoon in Hawaii. When we returned, we settled into suburban life in Brownwood. I was promoted to senior network administrator, and Nina became a physical therapist assistant at Sacred Heart, while also pursuing her DPT program at St. Catherine's. We recently bought a 5-bedroom house in Twin Oaks, not far from Nina's old place. We even set up a home gym. Occasionally, I see Lily and Hannah around town. Lily's still with Leo, and Hannah married Alex Jacobs, fulfilling her dream of becoming the trophy wife. I've heard some rumors about their questionable lifestyle, but I don't pay attention. I've moved on and I have everything I need now. These days, I'm living a life I never expected, with my 2 beautiful blondes. Nina and Chloe are waiting for me to take them to the Christmas ball. Both look stunning in sapphire dresses. Yes, Chloe is officially my daughter now. Nina's sporting a baby bump, and Chloe has already named the future sibling Baby Bear. It feels like we've reached the fairy tale ending, but tonight feels extra special. I can't stop thinking about how beautiful Nina looks, even with her baby bump, and I'm struggling to keep my hands off her as she finishes her makeup.